Hey, welcome everybody to today's Leica conversation. I'm your host, John Kreidler, product specialist for Leica Camera USA, and I'm glad you've joined us. Today, our guest is Lauren Wells, professional photographer and Leica Academy instructor. Lauren is a freelance photographer and former attorney. She left an unfulfilling career after 16 years to pursue her passion for photography. She's attracted to ideas and stories that display the commonality of us as people, that we as human beings have much more in common than we do differences. One of her greatest joys is to create candid photos of people in which a single frame tells a multitude of stories. So with that, please welcome Lauren Wells to the conversation.
Hi, John. Thanks so
Good
much.
evening. My pleasure. Really looking forward to this conversation. Of course, to learn a little bit more about you as not just a photographer, but as an instructor. So I think it should be a lot of fun. We have some images to check out, but I think let's start maybe getting to know you a little better. So you're an attorney. How many years did you go to school
For
to be an
law
attorney?
school, 3 years after
The whole,
undergrad.
yeah, yeah. Okay. So you give that up to become a professional photographer. How did you get, I guess, into photography to begin with?
Well, it was actually through my aversion to the law, I guess you could say. I became a lawyer because it was a path that was paved. Um, my family, my friends, my teachers growing up said I'd be a good lawyer. It was a secure job to have. And the truth is, I really couldn't read what my heart was telling me until I was older. So I went to law school because it was a paved path. Um, and the only thing I knew was that I loved the world and traveling, and I loved Spain and speaking Spanish. I had studied there when I was in college, and I didn't know what to do with it. So I kind of put that away. Um, and then somewhat into my career, I ended up working at a Spanish bank and got to live in Spain. And they abruptly asked me to come home. Um, Long story, but I didn't want to come home because I loved working in Spain, but I didn't love being a lawyer. So back home, I was just going to be a lawyer again. And I asked if we could work out a deal to lay me off, and they did. And I got a severance package that enabled me to take some time off. And I wanted to go traveling alone just to clear my head, think what I would do next. And I decided to take a photography class because I wanted to memorialize my trip. And I did that. I borrowed my dad's film camera and off I went. And I just fell in love with photography. I was just able to be present at every moment while I was traveling, which is not hard to do when you're traveling because everything's interesting. But I still was in love with it when I got back home. So that is how I got interested.
So you said you borrowed your father's camera. Was he heavily into photography? Like, was it something that, or he just happened to have a camera
He
kind
wasn't
of thing?
heavily interested. My dad was, um, he was interested in a lot of things. He has a very expansive mind, and I remember him taking pictures, but I don't remember it being this. And we didn't have a dark room in our house or anything like that.
Okay,
But
okay,
yeah,
right, okay.
uh, yeah, he liked it. But I don't have any. I don't remember anything that would inspire me to say I want to do this coming from my dad.
Gotcha, gotcha. All right, so you enjoy travel photography. You decide this is a path you want to pursue. Uh, did did you have a mentor, like when you were starting out? Where you look, was there somebody, a teacher, a friend, a colleague that
So,
you'd
um,
go shooting with, or?
not not exactly, no. I pretty much uh was self-taught, but there, of course, there were people along the way that definitely helped to foster my path. And so when I got back from traveling, I ended up going back to the law for 5 years. And I wanted to, on my vacations, I wanted to explore photography again. So I went to Greece once. And there was the photographer who was giving this workshop, a photography workshop in Greece. His name is Glenn Steiner. And he studied photography formally in California at the Brooks Institute. And he said to me, when during the workshop, when everybody, we get to view everybody's photos of what photos the students took, he said, you remind me of myself before I went to school and learned too much. And I remember, note to self, do not forget that. um
Wow, that is awesome.
and so that, I don't know, Glenn, if you're out there, we're still in touch on social media. I want him to know what an influence, just that passing comment had on me. Then when I started to pursue photography a little more seriously after I left the law for good 5 years later, I started working with a man named Ian Summers, who used to be an art director, a creative director. He was very involved in the creative industry. And I basically said to him, how do I fit into this industry? Now I'm older. I'm not a teenager. I'm not 20. Photography has kind of had gone through its golden age already. What can I offer? And he said, Lauren, there is an audience for every artist. There is an audience. You just have to find them. And that made me feel better, that there's something for all of us. And he also said, and this goes for any profession or any pursuit that you have, not just photography, that if you want to learn or seek the advice of somebody who has, quote, made it or been there, to search for someone who has already um, had the accomplishments, somebody who is ready, because usually after you've, quote, made it, whatever that means, you're ready to give back. And
Mhm.
and you're not busy fighting to be seen and heard and find your place. Um, David Carroll, I had my first portfolio review with him in New York, I guess over 10 years now. And he looked at my work and he said one thing. He's like, you got to get closer, period. That's it. There was nothing more. There was no appendage. Um, and it's just like Robert Capper says, if your pictures aren't good
Right.
enough, you're not close enough. And I took his advice, because I had been using a zoom lens and shooting at the other end at 70 millimeters. I took that off and put on a wide angle, and it changed my photography basically
Mm.
overnight, because I had to use that intimacy, get close, that intimacy. Psychology is a lot of photography is a lot about psychology, which I learned. And then I think Richard Calvar also gave me words of wisdom. I was helping him. I was assisting with a class that he was teaching, and I was in this rut, and I didn't know how to get out of it. And he took a look at some of my work and he said, "You're not playing enough." And I'm like, "Oh my God, that's it." And just like Glenn had said to
Mm.
me, you remind me of myself before I learned too much. It was, oh my God, I'm becoming that person, and I'm not playing and being a beginner and messing up.
This is great. All great stuff and great advice. And so, how did you get then involved with, I guess, with Leica? Uh, And how did that how did that come about?
Well, that's an interesting story. I was I I helped produce the Miami Street Photography Festival, and there are a lot, and Leica used to sponsor it at the time. And there were, I was in a circle having a conversation with a lot of Leica photographers. Um, and in a nutshell, I said, I know you all love your camera. I'm sure it's great. I was using a different brand at the time. But it's not my, as a freelance photographer in New York City, this is not my, in my budget, and I know they were trying to convert people at the festival to get Leicas. I said, I'm not your market, so you can look elsewhere. And somebody who worked at Leica came over to me afterwards, um, and I guess his goal was to just get a Leica in my hand to know that there really is a difference. So Leica loaned me a cue while I was shooting a long-term project, which we may get into later, about stickball. And I remember saying, "Oh no, I don't want to learn another camera right now. That I'm not even going to have after a certain amount of time because I got to give the loan back." And I shot with the camera for one day, along with my other two brand cameras that I had. And a few months later, I was looking through the work and the Leica images literally just popped off the screen. And I said, uh-oh, it's true. What everyone says about Leica, uh-oh.
Right, right,
So then Leica loaned me some cameras to shoot stickball for a longer period of time. And eventually they asked me to teach for them. So I was so honored
right,
to accept.
right. That's great. Yeah, I often joke that, I mean, and we all say it. The queue is the gateway to our community, to our lifestyle, and it is so true from both a design standpoint, but also just an image quality standpoint. Just a great camera to shoot, particularly if you like 28. Um, so you need to get a little closer than a lot of people,
Yeah.
particularly if you're used to, an SLR style camera with a zoom lens. It's a bit of a transition. So um, that's great. So you talked about once you're making it, you want to give back. So what are you doing other than teaching for the academy? Are there any other groups that you're involved with?
I am involved with a program. It's a nonprofit called NYC SALT, and SALT is the name SALT. It's not an acronym. Um, that teaches photography. It's a full year photography program, and we teach it to high school students in New York City from underserved communities. And I've been
Okay.
teaching that program for 5 years now, I think going on 6. And that has been so incredibly rewarding. Um, and there's nothing better than teenagers to keep you on your toes, uh, and keep pushing you.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds very rewarding. Do you find that teaching and working with a lot of students, particularly let's say teenagers, in this case, how does it affect your photography and how you start to see?
Oh, that's a good question. And I think it does because I had to figure out what I was doing and become super conscious of it, because a lot of creativity and what we do is it becomes second nature, and a lot of it may not be conscious.
Hmm.
Especially if you're doing it for a while. So I had to kind of really be objective and watch what I was doing in order to teach it. Um,
Right.
and then I would notice, well, I need to be consistent. Like, I need what I'm teaching, I need to be doing. and not
Right.
getting lazy and slacking off in certain ways. So it's definitely made me more committed and on
Kind of
my
diligent
toes.
to following your own
Yes,
advice.
diligent. Yes, exactly.
All right, awesome. All right, so I guess we ought to look at some images.
Sure.
So we'll start. And what strikes me about your work. Let's see if we can. Here we go. So this this first image is really interesting, and I think from here we begin to see some of what I would call your visual signature about what you like and what you gravitate to. And the thing that I've mentioned to you before is that uh, you're not just taking a picture of a child doing something cute. You're actually photographing childhood. And for a lot of people that like to shoot in what we would call a street type environment, um, it's hard to get beyond, I think, the cute. Uh, it's easy. It's it's what appeals to us. But why don't you take us through, uh, this image and kind of what attracted you to capture it?
Okay. So there's two ways that I will see something that'll stop me. And in this case, it was I saw the composition. So I saw all these shapes in the human form and as well as in the balloons and the benches. And then if that's all there is in a if there's just a composition, but there's not that thing, which is what makes a photograph, at least for me, we got to have some connection to it emotionally. What they were doing here, I went to raise the camera to my eye and was just checking it out because this hadn't happened yet, this moment. And then they saw me, all the adults, so they started pointing to the kid to turn around. And I was going to scream, like, no, no. And I was kind of going, no, 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 no. They didn't notice that. And thank God he was so intransigent and stubborn, and he
Right.
refused to turn around. So that's what made that moment. And then I took the picture.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree with you. I just think the child actually reminds me of myself, probably at that age, where whatever I was told to do, I pretty much did the opposite. Uh, it's probably still true today to some extent, but anyway, I think it's a great moment, and I like the interaction uh, of it, but also the graphic, uh, parallel line or horizontal lines, vertical lines, building shapes, but also each person behind the table kind of adds to it. Like you get a sense that this was a moment of a party that
Mm.
was going to happen. You kind of captured just a small part of it. So I really love it. So here's the next image. I just find it interesting when how people photograph children in this way, where you're kind of documenting again, how they are, how they're wondering, how are they going to get the biggest toy that's in the claw machine, right? Is that was going on, and then you have all the graphic kind of interest that goes on. Where in the city was this? Do you know?
This
Do you
was,
know?
yeah, I do. This was in East Harlem. And
Oh wow.
I'm pretty sure on my way home. Yeah, because it was a Sunday, because they just came from church. Um,
Mm.
on my way home from stickball, which is the long-term project I was doing for a number of years, and part of that took place in East Harlem. So I would have my bags of cameras, and then I would have my street camera, with my wide lens ready always, because you never know what you're going to find. And on a Sunday in East Harlem, everybody's coming out or going into church. So I saw this group of kids coming out of church with the balloons, and I just kind of followed them for half a block, a quarter of a block, just hanging around. They were completely ignoring me. And this is where they went. I just hung around and waited till something interesting happened. And I don't know if you could see the little boy's face who's behind the girl. He's like in awe of what she's getting there. Yeah. And that to me was.
All right. So they have just played the claw machine and they've got something. They've got something interesting. Yeah. All right. Great. All right. So here's a ballerina at work. I just, it reminds me of Irwin. A lot of times his composition, it's, like with dogs, you see people's legs and the dog. This is kind of a similar feel to me. Plus, black and white in the tonal range. I just think it's amazing shot.
Oh.
What can you tell us about it?
Thank you. I just turned around. This was at the Plaza Hotel. And I was just walking around shooting. And I just saw this and I just took one shot and that was it. And I call this Daddy's Girl. So there's that underlying story that I don't realize is happening consciously, because it's a fraction of a second that this occurred, but it's in there somehow. And all the lines are, the men coming down the stairs, the lines of their legs are just that perfect composition to who I assume is the father on the other side. But then her legs, what she's doing, as you said, her ballerina, let's call it flexibility there. She's kind of straddling between two worlds, holding on to daddy and then in this other world over there. But yeah, and then the composition of all those lines in her legs is included in that.
Yeah, and also, from the tonal standpoint, you're drawn to her as the subject, and she's really isolated, and your eye really stays there for a bit, and then you kind of catch the father and daughter holding hands, kind of a thing, and then you go up the rail and then back around again. So really interesting. This, what can you tell? I mean, there's so many great things about, the vertical lines and the framing. And it looks like maybe they're by the library, I'm not sure, but just a really, again, a strong image. Now, is he afraid to read? He said, "No, don't make me read another book, please."
This was actually at a book drop. That there's not a library, so there's a book drop there. And we're back in East Harlem on a Sunday. I think I'm on my way. Yes, I am. I'm on my way to Stickball. So it's early Sunday morning. And again, I have my camera ready. I get out of the subway at 110th and Lex, and there's this kid with his eyes over his hands, and I mean his hands over his eyes, and I thought, did he see me? Is he being coy? So I took the picture, and then I walked down the block, and there's another kid who is running, and they're counting. They were playing hide and seek.
Oh wow!
So I had no idea.
Yeah,
and that made it even more special to me.
Right. Well, that's what I think is so great about images in general, right? You can, as the viewer, you kind of make up the story, like it could be he's lost his favorite book, and he's just sad about it, or mad that he has to read a book, or he could be playing hide and seek. So, all those things are certainly valid and interesting. This is quite interesting to me as well. Was she just performing or pouting, or?
She was pouting.
Yeah.
Again, this is after Stickball. There was a festival in East Harlem a Latin festival. So everybody was kind of open to being photographed. I mean, not everybody, but it's an easier crowd, so to speak,
Mhm.
especially at a festival. And I was hanging out there and she was pouting and she just walked in center stage because I view a lot of my I look at photography or frames as a stage, and she literally came center stage. And she knew I was there. Everybody knew I was there, but nobody cared. And they just were pretty much ignoring me. So yeah, that pout is just is everything to me.
Yeah, I mean, you can, I don't know, your images, you sense that you're trying to have that connection with the subject. You're like you're trying to show them in their best light, even if they're pouting and on center stage. So, and again, it's always those graphic components of strong vertical and horizontal lines, very
Mm.
symmetrical, uh, which definitely gives that feeling of support to the subject. So let's see what we've got next here. This is interesting. Now, what was in the box? Did you find out what was in the box?
Well, so what's interesting, again, I was going to stickball. I got off the subway and I
Right.
saw this. I took the frame, didn't read the box. I had no time. I got home and I said, "Oh my God, it says it's something about adoption." So there's an animal in there, and I'm
Yeah.
assuming that his mom just got the dog, the cat, the gerbil, whatever it
Right.
is, I don't know. And he's
Gotcha.
trying to make friends, but I didn't know that when I took it. It just
That
made it,
is that
yeah.
is so. I mean, that is so great. I mean, that is so much a young kid that's just getting a pet, and and they just want to connect with it. I mean, I think it's an awesome image, and
Yeah.
it looks like they have to buy a ticket on the train, maybe. Um,
Yep. That's
maybe
what
do I have to pay for the animal now? I'm not really sure. No,
they
it's
write free till they're 12.
till the 12th. Okay,
Yeah.
good to
So
know.
I don't know.
All right, all right. So this, I guess we're still talking about kids a little bit, but transition to Coney Island, where we actually have something very exciting coming up. Lauren will be doing a workshop for the Leica Academy, and as long as the weather is good, the subject matter will be Coney Island. So anyone's interested in that, we'll have a link at the end of the program. This will give you an idea of how basically how Lauren sees, and that's what we're going to bring together to you for this program uh, featuring Coney Island. Was this around Halloween, or
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
or were they just,
No,
because
it
some
was.
kids just dress like this all the time?
I know. In New York, you never know. Um,
Right.
no, this was around Halloween. It was Halloween weekend. Coney Island has a lot of activities after the season ends, at least in the fall. And this was just one of those moments that I just thought was so endearing
Yeah.
with these kids. I followed them around. I have a lot of photos of them doing different things, but this was my favorite.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like they're pushing each other or something. You know what I mean? Like they're trying to stand up to each
Yeah,
other,
as boys do.
or
Yeah.
maybe they're just close talkers. It could be they're just close talkers.
Yeah, depends on the
All
viewer what
right. So
story you're telling.
here's another interesting image. What When you saw this image in your mind, I guess before you captured it, what drew you to it?
Well, first I was, like I said, there's two ways that I see what, and one of them is composition, and the other is there an interesting moment? And then I got to
Mhm.
fill it with composition. So this I saw, I have this mantra called fill the frame, tell a story. So if you get that top third already filled, that's a bonus. And so these kites were flying. So I was just focused on them, the kites, and seeing how I could, if there was anything interesting to fill the frame with.
Mm.
And I saw the two girls in bathing suits. I was playing around with that. And then all of a sudden I saw this couple walking, and I saw them probably back where the kite with in scuba gear, maybe the
Yeah.
second
All the
kite
way
from the
back there.
left. They were back
Hmm.
there. And I
Okay.
just, it was one of those moments I just knew. And I
Yeah.
ran to get into position, and I just waited, and I just kept
Yeah.
clicking while they walked by.
Yeah.
And this is a special photo for me. I mean, I don't think I'll
Yeah.
ever take anything like this again. It just, everything
No,
came
it's
together.
yeah, no, you're 100% right. In terms of everything coming together, the fact that you saw the couple before they happened. I mean, with my luck, when if I was involved, the couple would walk the other way, uh, or it just wouldn't. For me, it wouldn't happen that way. But it's the kind of thing where knowing and anticipating. The other thing I liked how you described how you're shooting to use like continuous shooting. And I think a lot of photographers want to shoot single frame, they're thinking maybe the decisive moment. To me, shooting continuous just gives you more options. Not that you're going to maybe keep everything, maybe you do, but it just gives you options compositionally. And you're looking at shapes a lot of
Mhm.
times. And sometimes when you're shooting, right, you don't know if people are walking the shape that they're making. You don't always see it and know that it captures, and you can't, if you click and chimp,
Right.
you're not going to get it. So it's a great image, and
And
great tonal range. I mean, that's the other thing that I'm seeing in all these images is great use of range, of tonal range. And a lot of times shooting black and white, that's difficult. Now, are you using a color, like you're using the Q2, I know,
mhm.
which is a color camera, and then converting it to black and white? Have you ever shot any of the monochromes?
I have shot the monochromes. I've shot the Q2 monochrome. Did I ever shoot the M?
Mm,
I don't remember. I've definitely shot the Q2 monochrome. And I have to say, I mean, it's an amazing camera. I do have
yeah.
to say, I'm very used to converting from color. So I'm using the color channels. So
Hmm.
it's a whole different way in post-production than
Gotcha.
doing it with tonal range and when I'm shooting a monochrome. So I prefer to shoot in color at this point. And I would, because I'm just how I convert and post.
Okay.
And
So
so yeah.
you've got a secret preset that will be available
Oh,
online
oh
for
yeah,
a download.
exactly. Oh, don't I wish? Oh, wow. That would free half of
Yeah.
my day, to push a
Yeah,
button.
there you go. No, that's great to hear. I too like the Q2 monochrome. Of the Q family, that's my favorite, particularly I seem to shoot it mostly in bad weather. Um,
Mm,
but
sure.
it's the Q2 is an incredible camera, as well as the family. But the monochrome is just, I think, just a little more special,
Mhm.
because you don't have that color information. You're just capturing light, and it really shows how good that lens really is in terms of sharpness and clarity. Here's another great shot, and again, filling the frame and not being afraid to get close. What lens? I'm going to sound a little tech geeky
Yeah.
here, but what's your favorite lens? Now, what lens are you shooting mostly? I guess. I mean, the
Well,
Q2 would be 28, but if you're shooting another camera,
it's between 28 and 35.
okay,
I wish they made a 30. Like that's what I'm really, but yeah, it's
right,
between 28 or 35 is what I tend to shoot at.
okay,
Um, and yeah, here I saw these two flags blowing in the wind.
Mhm.
These two girls were far back, closer to the boardwalk, and there was just something interesting there. So I followed them. They didn't see me. They were heavily in conversation, and there was nothing photographically interesting for me to click the shutter, but there was something it was worth following. And then they just stopped, and that happened. So,
Yeah, well, I like
sometimes
the
you get
couple,
lucky.
the lady walking away, the young girl. I mean, it's all there. There's a little, obviously there's a story there. That's neat.
Thank you.
All right. So this is a post-production trick, right? That you
Yep, it was, yeah, it
right
was
that
in
you
color. It was with the
got the
Q2.
thunderbolt next to the thunderbolt,
Yeah, right. Right. I
and
didn't.
and there's some of Alan Schuyler's seagulls. No,
Yeah,
no.
he loaned them to me. It was starting to get really stormy looking, so everybody left the beach, and there was really nothing left but the seagulls. So I saw this, I took it. I liked the framing, and then I got home and I saw the lightning bolt. I did not see that when I took it. So that was a gift from the photo gods, 100%. I cannot take
Yeah.
credit for it, but boy, was that a lucky one.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy when things like that happen. Talking to a lot of other photographers and working with them on workshops, it seems that they all have images like this that they say that when they took it, they didn't see it, and then when they got home, there was magic there, which to me is the strongest argument for never delete anything in camera
Mhm.
ever. So that's a great one. This
Ve-
is, to me, it seems like it's a slice of their life, right?
Yep, that's exactly right. And I always love to hear the stories that other people see in the photos, because it can be very different from what happened or from what I'm seeing if I don't really know what was happening. Well, this was during, I think it was Passover. And so a lot of the Jewish community was off, and they were all at Coney Island. Was it Purim or Passover? I don't remember, but it was a Jewish holiday. I was following this family around because the poor dad could not get the kite flying, and the family was really annoyed with him. And I felt so bad for him.
I totally get it. I totally get it. Yeah.
And so that's what I see in this photo, but I know
Yeah.
the backstory. And
Yeah.
they knew I was around. Again, they were ignoring me. They just didn't
Yeah.
care that I was there.
Yeah.
And he finally got it to fly a little bit. Well, not really. If you like, they're looking at somebody else's kite actually, and he's got
Right.
this
And
kite down
his
there.
is ready to hit the
Yeah,
sand.
they're done with him.
It's ready to do a nosedive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
No, I just like, beyond that little story, but again, using the clouds, using kind of the rays of light, the pier, the horizontal lines in the pier. I mean, it's just really very interesting, and you get a sense that the father is trying to do something to the chagrin of the family. The family could
Yes.
be, they couldn't be more or less interested
Mhm.
with what was going on.
You are
It
spot
was
on.
a dad project, that's for sure. Okay, so now this begins, I guess, your long-term project that you did with stickball. So I'm always curious when people have a long-term project, how did it start? Why have a long-term project? What does it do for you?
Um,
What does it do
well,
for your life?
well, first, how I got started with it.
Yeah.
I was not looking for a long-term project at all. Uh, I was looking for a place to find where there was a population of people outside during the summer that would just be interesting to shoot rather than just roaming the streets.
Hmm.
And there was a stickball game in East Harlem I found out about that I had actually gone to a few years before, didn't even remember, um, and went back and started shooting like I was shooting street. Didn't ask permission, just and this is in the Bronx, by the way, but where I started was in East Harlem. I was there for a couple of hours, didn't talk to a soul. And then somebody kind of called me over and say, "Hey, who are you and what are you doing?" And I said, "I'm sorry, I just walked into somebody's house basically
Yeah.
uninvited." And I apologized and I said, "Well, I'm thinking of, I don't know, maybe doing a project on this," which I wasn't, but I thought maybe I'd come back again. And we started talking in Spanish, and then his guard was let down, and because he was from Puerto Rico, and he said, "Hey, you should come back. We're having a playoff on I forgot the name of the street. And we're going to be honoring one of the 81-year-old players." And I'm like, "Oh, wow, an
Wow.
81-year-old guy playing." So I went back. Then I met the head of the league. And then he said, "Well, you should come by next week because we're having the Hall of Fame Awards at the Museum of the City of New York." So I went back. And each time I met somebody that just enticed me to come back. And before I know it, it's 6 years. I mean, within I would say about 5 weeks of going back on Sunday, I decided, okay, there's something that's getting me to wake up at 6 a.m., 7 a.m. on a Sunday. What is it? And that's where that long-term project is very different than just shooting in the street randomly. You really need to be committed to something. And how do you get committed to something? Well, you have to be interested, deeply interested. You have to have a passion, something that's going to keep you going to stay committed, because nothing long term is easy. As a long term project, and I think with any project, you have to figure out, what are you trying to say? Why do I keep going back here? Like, what am I going to get if I'm doing this long term? And what attracted me was the passion, the energy, and the community, and the simplicity of the game. I'm attracted to all of those things. So that's the story I wanted to tell. And then you have to start crafting that story. You can't, again, random photos aren't going to cut it. So it's okay. Well, how do you keep moving the story forward? It's kind of like if you're writing something, you have to keep advancing the story. You can't keep telling the same thing over and over. And that's challenging, but it's very rewarding. Yeah, this is the East Harlem, the Sugar Hill team. They just won the championship.
Oh,
And I'm
wow.
on a ladder, by the way, because I am not that tall.
Sometimes when you feel stuck, creatively stuck, you just don't like the images that you're shooting. I mean, I find having a project, having a focus, having uh, well, as Ralph Gibson would say, like a point of departure,
Mm.
and go out and shoot with intent will sometimes get me out of that. Do you find that to be true?
Absolutely. That's what happened to me. I mean, I was bored with shooting on the street just randomly, pretty much. And I felt a sense of purpose. And what I want to say, I learned for myself, is that everybody has a story. Because if you're interested,
Right.
you're going to bring that energy and passion. So that's what I learned. I mean, stickball has been done many times before, and I didn't care because I just kind of
Mhm.
I got bit by it.
Well,
And
I mean, what I see in all these images is, again, you're capturing moments, but it feels like you're part of the community.
mm,
It feels like you've been accepted. It feels like you have an understanding of what's going on. I mean, it's the kind of thing where uh, I can go and photograph a relative's wedding and not be the photographer, but just shoot it because I know the story. I know you know, who likes who doesn't really care for who,
Right.
and I can capture those moments. And then my family sees the images. Oh, you ought to be a wedding photographer. I go, no, 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 not me. But way too much pressure. But what you're seeing is my connection to the audience, my connection to this family or community. And in your work, I'm seeing that as well. And it's all through everything. And I think is I guess, how do you get there when I see, from a point of view and caring and understanding? I mean, is there like a mental preparation that you do before you shoot, or is it just you being you? Because I feel each image that we take has a little piece of us, whether we want to recognize it or not. But I'm just wondering what you could share about maybe a little bit about your process, maybe how you prepare, and how do you, I guess, how do you connect to a community like this? I think a lot of people have difficulty doing that, particularly street photographers going
Yeah.
on photo walks with people. It's just like, oh, oh, oh,
Right.
yeah, that kind of thing.
Do a movie.
So yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. You're spot on. I mean, as I said before, I went to shoot at the stickball game as a street photographer. I didn't talk to anybody,
Mhm.
and they didn't like that. And I said, "Oh, okay, I get it." And then I had to switch the chip, so to speak. One thing, I don't know that I knew this consciously when I started photographing, but don't go in a bad mood,
Mm.
because you're gonna get back what you put out. And a lot of times it's not conscious. What taught me this lesson is I was shooting in Union Square, and I was in such a calm state, just like I was in the best mood. And I found these two boys and a father and a dog. I started photographing them. I didn't talk to them. I didn't speak to them. I was there for 2 hours, and I got really close.
Mm.
I mean, at one point I said, am I dreaming? Like, am I invisible? What is going on here? But it was
Right.
my vibe. And so that was very informing. I've never had that experience again, but it made me realize what you are feeling, you're putting out. It's kind of unconscious when people, all those interactions that take place, we don't realize what's going on underneath. So just check your emotions, work through them before you go out, unless you want to take photos that are maybe of a
Angry,
different kind of sentiment.
angry
Yeah. And
photos.
maybe you'll get
Wow.
punched in the face, and then that's okay. I don't know. But um so it's having that, and then it's being open. You are not, I mean, in journalism, they have this saying, you're making a photo, you're not taking it. It's not
Mhm.
corny, it's true. If you think you're stealing, and I'm sure you've had this as a photographer or as an educator, people always say to me, well, I'm afraid because I feel like I'm stealing and I don't want to invade. Okay, I understand that, and there are ways and to do that, and everybody has their comfort zone with that, but you
Mhm.
have to be open. Whereas there's beauty, what you see, you are creating something, and not feel guilty, or else that is really, you're not going to have fun with this. So being
Right.
open, and people receive you when you are open. So that's how the stickball started.
Gotcha. So we have a question from the audience that kind of fits kind of what we're talking about. It says, how did you overcome that hesitancy to get closer to your subject? They add, I would love to try street photography, but I'm often concerned about invading people's personal space.
It's a great question, and we all go
Yeah.
through it, I think. Well, first off, put some training wheels on. I don't know where the questioner lives, but uh, go somewhere where people are expecting to be photographed. In New York City, it might be Times Square, it might be a
Hmm.
street fair, or somewhere where there's a celebration, or
Hmm.
whether I don't want to say parade, but even parade, if you're photographing the streets of the crowds, people are expecting cameras. That's a good way to get comfortable and boost your confidence. And then there's just ways of getting tacit consent. You don't have to be a go and just, be invisible and just shoot and run. You could ask people, but just by looking at them. You don't have to ask, may I take your photo? You can just, if they see you, um, you can just kind of build this understanding. That's what happens with me a lot. Yeah, I would start at a place that's generally friendly to photographers.
I mean, do
Mm.
you ever find yourself engaging, like talking with somebody before you photograph them or get to know them better?
When it comes to street photography, I tend not to photograph, to just talk with them beforehand, unless it's a
Mhm.
parent and I'm asking if I could photograph their children.
Right.
But because it changes the moment, but I will talk to them afterwards for sure. And
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
reason I love photography is because I love people. And it's just an excuse to connect with people, to be honest, and
Yeah.
tell a
No,
story.
no, no, I think that's a great, it's a great way of thinking about it. Looking at your images, they are taken from a compassionate point of view, and you can tell that you really want to, at some level, engage with the subject, and you're again presenting them in the best light, which again just kind of goes to that thought. So, um,
Well, I just have to say on this one, this is his name was Jose, or is
right.
Jose, and he was homeless in East Harlem. And
Oh
one of the
wow,
teams invited him to play. You can tell here he did not get a home run. This was his third strikeout, and he was pretty frustrated. So
he'd
that
be
broke
pretty
him back.
upset.
Yeah. But there's just so many human stories I could tell about this community.
When we talk about breaking down barriers and photographing people that are seemingly strangers until we capture them and then they become friends
Mhm.
at some point. But it's I think it's a challenge for everybody, but everybody as photographers, at least I feel that everybody's making that decision whether you want to, you know, snap and run or you want to engage with people, even without taking their photographs, just
Mhm.
talking to someone, which for many of us is just a foreign way of thinking. So what's next for the stickball project?
I want to make a book of this project. I really want to give back to this community, and I want to do it. I want to I want to appeal not necessarily to photographers with this book as a photography book, but to stickball players and old timers that grew up playing it and have moved away, and maybe something nostalgic, and and for the people that play it now. So I want to make a book. I have no plans at the moment, but that's the next thing. And I don't think I'll be
Well,
able to start another project until I do, just because it's still in my head. But we'll see.
yeah. So we are at what's next, I think. As promised, if you'd like to take a workshop with Lauren, we had mentioned Coney Island, as long as the weather is not quite as thunderbolty. We will be out at Coney Island and learning to see. And I'm really looking forward to this workshop. It's going to be a great time to help people connect with visual storytelling. And, somewhere between learning how to use your camera and going into a master's class, this is kind of where that program is fit in. And I think it's really needed, and I'm really looking forward to it. And I don't know, Lauren, did you want to say anything more without giving away the keys to the store, of course,
Yeah, all
about the
I want
program?
to, sure, thank you. All I want to say is that photography is a skill. It's not a talent. I mean, some people may be born with it, but I sure wasn't. And if you learn the basic concepts and you practice, you will find your voice. And that's what I love doing more than anything, is to help people do that. And it's going to be a lot of fun, this one. So I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. And it's a rare in-person workshop for you, right? A lot of the
Right.
other
Everything's
programs
online.
you're doing are virtual. So it'll be a great time. So you can scan the QR code and get the information, or go to leicacamera.com/academy and get more information on that. Here's Lauren's contact information. You can follow her on Instagram at Lauren Wells. You can visit her website, laurenwells.com, for more interesting images and maybe get a better idea of the stickball project, that kind of thing. And as always, feel free to follow Leica Camera USA and Leica Akademie USA on Instagram and Facebook. So I want to thank everybody, but mostly thank you, Lauren, for being a guest today on Leica Conversation. It's been a great time, great conversation. I can't thank you enough for participating. And again, looking forward to the workshop.
Yeah. Thank you so much, John. It's such a pleasure, and looking forward to working with you again soon.
All right. Sounds great. Well,
Yeah.
thanks everybody for tuning in. And until the next time, we wish
Bye,
you good
everyone.
light. Take care, everybody.